Welcome to the YouTube channel. My name is Ashby. I'm an online personal trainer, body transformation coach, wannabe Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grappler, and today I'm going to be answering the question that I got on Instagram. If you're not following me, @BrockAshby is my handle. The question I got was, I am always hitting the gym, trying to bulk up, aren't we all, but afraid of injuring myself. Do you have any advice? Brock, please help. He didn't actually say that, I just added that in. And I wanted to answer this question first off by providing a little bit of what the research says around injuries. The gym is not a place where we just snap our bones and get injured. It's a place where we build muscle, where we try to improve our health. And I want to make it a very positive place for you. And I think this research will really help and give you an accurate representation of what injury rates are like when you go to the gym and lift recreationally. So there was some research that they did around injury rates per 1,000 hours, and here are the rates. So for bodybuilding, and this was pro bodybuilding, so I want you to look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I a pro bodybuilder, or am I someone that goes to the gym 3 to 6 times per week and trains when I can? And if you are a pro bodybuilder, welcome to the channel. If you're not, then consider the injury rate might be a little bit lower because you're not lifting to the intensity that they might be, and you're potentially not training as hard as they do. So for pro bodybuilding, the injury rates were 0.24 to 1 injuries per 1,000 hours, and 1,000 hours is around 2.7 years. So if you look at it between 2.5 to 3 years, that's going to be a good place to think of these injury rates. For Olympic weightlifting, it was 1 to 2.4 injuries per 1,000 hours. If you don't know what Olympic weightlifting is, watch the Olympics. It's where they lift heavy weights over their head, stand up, and yell. For powerlifting, it's 1 to 4.4 injuries per 1,000 hours. So the injury rate is slowly starting to climb. For CrossFit, it was 3.2 injuries per 1,000 hours. So we have less of a range here with the injuries, and it's a lot higher. So 3.2 injuries per 1,000 hours. So that could be around 1 injury per year, approximately. And with strongman, 4.5 to 6.1 injuries per 1,000 hours. Now, I think the injury rate's much higher for strongman type of training or strong woman, because you're doing a lot of kind of different lifts. You're doing log presses, you're picking up heavy Atlas balls, and you're doing things like pulling trains and doing kind of these out-of-the-box lifts that are specific to strongman. And doing immaculate technique with such crazy weight is difficult. So with these injury rates, you can see that bodybuilding actually had the lowest injury rate out of all of these sports. And for doing sports like martial arts and soccer, rugby, American football, injury rates are going to be much higher because you have other people that you're going to be dealing with. That is not a fixed variable. When you lift weights, it's pretty much always a fixed variable. A barbell doesn't dance around and move. A dumbbell doesn't do something that you don't expect. A cable machine is always going to do what a cable machine does. But when you're dealing with actual humans, like I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I can't really understand where they're going to go. I can't look into the future and go, oh, this person's going to do that and that person's going to do that. Obviously, as I get better, I can understand what options they have, but you're still facing a human that has the ability to reason and do whatever they want. With weights, you just have this heavy thing that you need to pick up and put down. So the injury rate is actually quite low when you think about it. Now, when you look at that, in terms of injuring yourself, we can't really do anything about that rate, but we can do as much as possible not to get injured. So I have made a list of 5 things to do to help best prevent any injuries from happening. Number 1, having sufficient warm-ups. So I would start that with doing any dynamic stretches or warm-up routines that you have to your specific body. Some people have really tight shoulders. Some people have really tight calves. Some people have a really tight lower back. Some people have really tight glutes. Everyone has kind of different bodies and have seen physios for different reasons. And sometimes you have this kind of specific warm-up routine that you always do. I would recommend doing that for your body if it's helping you. The second thing that I would want you to do, and specifically urge you to do, that a lot of people don't, is warm-up sets. Warm-up sets are brilliant. So a warm-up set is doing an exercise that you're about to do. Let's say you're doing the squat. Instead of running on the treadmill for 5 minutes, prancing around and then doing some heavy squats, do some squats. Do some body weight squats. Get the barbell, put it on your back. Do some squats there. Then put some weight on. Do some squats there. And then the load that you're going to lift for your first set, do 50%. And then do 80%. And then do 100% of the weight for less reps. And then go into your set. These are warm-up sets. So slowly doing that specific exercise and increasing the weight incrementally. So you're warming up specifically for the exercise that you're doing. That is the best way to warm up for an exercise once you've done your dynamic stretches and things that are specific to your body. If you're not going to do that, you are highly increasing your risk of injury because you're about to do something that you haven't yet warmed up to do. But if you do specific warm-up sets for that exercise, your body is much prepared for what you're about to do. The last point on warm-up sets, you want to warm up with the same tempo and intent that you're going to lift your weight with in that working set. So if your tempo is 4 seconds down, 1 second up when you do your first working set, but you're warming up with 1 second down, 1 second up, that is not specific to what you're about to do. So make sure you copy the tempo when you're doing your warm-up sets. The second thing to help prevent any injuries from happening is having perfect technique at all times. And that sounds boring. It sounds like the form police is showing up and ruin the party, but I'd rather the form police show up and ruin the party than the injury police come and take you away in a body bag or in the back of an ambulance. So always prioritize perfect technique. And in the long run, that's how you train for longer. But secondly, and more interestingly, that is how you get stronger. The fastest way to get stronger is to lift with perfect technique. If you're not lifting with perfect technique, you can only get so strong, but there's a ceiling, and that ceiling is perfect technique or shitty technique, let's say, because the perfect technique ceiling just keeps lifting and lifting and lifting because it allows you to get stronger. But if you have shitty technique, you're only going to get as strong as the technique allows you. It's kind of like, you know, when you put a flea, like there's this kind of like wives' tale, I guess. If you put a flea in a jar and you jump up and it hits the jar, it keeps hitting it. And then if you take the lid off, it's only going to jump as high as it previously was allowed to. Even if the flea could jump higher previously because it's so used to this. That's kind of like what shitty technique does to you. It just kind of like puts this low ceiling over you. You can't get as strong as possible. When you lift that off and you improve your technique, you can jump as high as a flea can jump. How inspiring. Number 3, only train to failure on specific exercises. So when you look at getting injured, training to failure does increase your injury risk, but if you do it with intelligent machines and exercises, then it's going to be a lot easier to stay injury-free. For example, taking a chest press machine to failure, a shoulder press machine to failure, and a lat pull-down machine to failure, dumbbell lateral raises, bicep curls, barbell bicep curls. These are all safe exercises to take completely to muscular failure because nothing is going to snap or hurt. But if you do a heavy deadlift, if you do a heavy squat, if you do a heavy overhead press and you go to complete failure, the injury risk becomes much greater because your spine is loaded, because you're dealing with a lot more weight and it's a bit harder to get out of the way when you're at the bottom of a squat and you got 150 kilos on your back and you can't get up. There's a lot more chance of getting injured. So consider what exercises you're going to take to complete failure and what exercises you're going to leave a few reps in reserve, because it does make a big difference in terms of how safe you feel and how likely you are to get injured. Number 4, increase training to failure as the programs progress. This is where I like to coach my weekly reps in reserve model, or RPE model, rate of perceived exertion. The first week of the program is about 3 reps in reserve. And then as we progress through the weeks, the second week is 2 reps in reserve, the third week is 1 rep in reserve, and then the fourth week is training to complete failure every single set. But as you'll notice, the first week of the program, there's actually still a bit of room before we get to failure. So that is good when we're learning different exercises or just introducing exercises we haven't done in a while. Introducing a new tempo that we haven't done before, or maybe we're doing drop sets or rest pause methods or intensity techniques is what they're called. And that first week of the program, we don't want to go balls to the wall, training to failure straight away because we're still kind of learning new exercises and tempos and ways of training. So when you are looking at training to failure, I like to look at increasing it over time through a program instead of just going balls to the wall every exercise and every set. Lastly, ego lifting has to go. If you are prioritizing the amount of weight that you're lifting over the way that you're lifting that weight, aka technique, it's a surefire way to get injured sooner or later. It may not happen straight away, but it will happen eventually. And maybe it won't happen while you're 18 and made out of rubber bands. It probably will happen when you're 30 or 40 and you're paying the price of all that ego lifting that you did. So prioritize technique over the weight. Don't ego lift. Ego lift leads to nothing. It leads to injuries. It leads to you showing off and being let down because no one's watching you in the gym. To be honest, no one really cares how much weight you're lifting. The girls don't care, the guys don't care, whoever you think is watching probably isn't watching because we're all so fixated on ourselves and improving ourselves in the gym that we honestly don't really care what other people are lifting. Think to yourself, when you go to the gym, are you thinking about what everyone else is lifting or are you thinking about what you're lifting? Exactly. That's what you need to worry about, not what other people are doing. So hopefully this video helps you not to get injured, regardless if you're trying to bulk or if you're trying to cut. This is just some good injury prevention advice to help you stick around in the gym, because building muscle and getting stronger doesn't happen when you're injured, right? That's a fact. If you're injured, you're sitting on the couch, you're feeling sorry for yourself, and you're probably gaining weight eating Maltesers on the couch. So we don't want to get injured. We want to lift intelligently and warm up correctly. That's ultimately the takeaway of this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.